Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to thank all three of our witnesses for being here today and answering our questions. Mr. Secretary, let me start with you. A little bit off topic for today, but relevant. We are now more than 2 months into the funding shutdown for the Department of Homeland Security because folks at this end of the avenue have not yet been able to get to yes. I hope we're going to get to yes here shortly. I think we made some progress here today while we've been in this gathering. It's been necessary, as I understand it, for the administration to scrape out the pennies under the couch cushions in order to keep DHS running and honestly running not at full speed. Has your department had any role in contributing to the ongoing operations of DHS while things have not been funded?
Well, I wouldn't comment on the status of DHS. I'll just say the ways that we cooperate with them have continued. I mean, look at the southern border and the 11,000 troops we have there, Task Force Southern Border, ensuring that our border is locked down. We've worked with law enforcement from day one on DHS to do that, just like we have with local law enforcement across the country. So obviously we welcome DHS funding, but in the meantime, we're going to protect the country, protect the homeland, and that's what we're doing with them.
Do what is necessary. Very good. General, let me ask you, if it is more appropriate for the Secretary, we'll defer, but we've obviously been following with interest all of the developments and the publicly reported developments in Operation Epic Fury. There was some publicly reported activity a while back that I had reason to think might involve some Kansas service personnel. We didn't know from the public reporting. We had simply been trying to find out whether our folks were involved or not. We finally did get an answer. It took about 4 weeks, and when we got it, it was, for the most part, everything we'd read in the press, with one exception. It's a bit unsatisfactory when we're just trying to do our job and figure out whether our folks are implicated and whether we need to be doing something to help them, their families, or their folks back home. I know you take seriously the importance of providing that information, but can you just offer some reassurance that you do take those inquiries seriously and that was perhaps not?
We do, sir. I'm not exactly sure the situation you're talking about, but I'll get the teams together and figure out what broke down there and fix it.
Appreciate it very, very much. Mr. Secretary, let me come back to you. In talking with Kansans who either have been deployed or are in support of folks who have been deployed, I am under the impression that there has been a particularly high, especially early in the operation prior to the ceasefire, particularly high amount of concussive activity, and that we might be well advised to be prepared when folks come home for concussive injuries, for combat-related PTSD, perhaps at levels we aren't expecting, at least those of us watching from the outside of the operation. Can you say anything either about that in particular or more generally about what types of health and post-combat related health issues we ought to be preparing for when folks come home from this operation in particular?
Well, I know, Congressman, all of that is tracked very closely. As it pertains to this budget, there's $70 million for more research on that. But I would note that as it's tracked and identified, also 90% of those with injuries in this conflict have returned to duty. But that doesn't mean there couldn't still be a lingering effect, which is noted and will be continue to be tracked throughout.
And can I follow on that? I appreciate that answer very much. With respect particularly to Guard personnel who have been deployed, and when they come back, they return to their civilian roles. They may be in communities far from a military post. They may be in communities that don't have dedicated healthcare services, that may be particularly focused on concussive damage or post-traumatic stress damage. Is there particular thought on things we ought to be doing to prepare to serve that population when those men and women come home?
I think the biggest one is identifying it up front, doing that testing up front to identify what has occurred, and then the ability to track those service members. I know as a frontline leader that became part of my responsibility as well, tracking those who may be more susceptible to it, whether they have a formal network to address it or not. So definitely something we care about. TRICARE, ensuring they have increased access in places where there aren't military facilities is an important part of it.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. We care as well. We want to be helpful in that front when our folks come home. Last question, particular to some folks in Kansas. When you were here last year, Mr. Secretary, I talked about cooperation between the Veterans Health Agency and DHA and some work we've been trying to do at Irwin Army Community Hospital at Fort Riley. This committee and the Congress and the President enacted into law a provision that causes some cooperation between the two to happen, and we are very excited to report they're looking very good out at Irwin. The reason I raise this with you today, Some of the folks who made that happen were the commanding general at the 1st Infantry, General Roan, who's about to deploy to Europe, I believe in early June. His chief medical officer, who's about to leave for a different assignment.
The
Garrison
gentleman's
commander
time
who's
has
about to leave.
expired.
Can we get those things signed before they leave?
Support journalism you trust. Support PBS News. Donate now, or even better, start a monthly contribution today.